Yo, what's going on, everyone? Hope you're having a great day. It's Neff, and today I got you guys with my Havoc DH guide for Season 1 in the War Within. Now, like I do every tier, I created a Google Doc where all the info I cover in this video will also be in there, so you can see that on the screen now. I'll try and keep it up to date as much as possible as stuff changes. I like doing these Google Docs because obviously I can't edit a video that I already uploaded, if something changes, and changing the Google Doc is obviously, pretty easy. Anyways, I'm going to try and keep this as concise as possible. I don't want to waste your guys' time. But before we get into everything, I do want to shout out my UI. It's available for my patrons, Twitch, and Discord subs. It's currently updated for all specs, the new raids, and dungeons. So if you're interested in it, links are in the description. To actually get the UI, you need to join my Discord, go to the sub-only Neff UI channel, and you can download my installer directly from there, and I'll show you what it looks like quickly. We'll just run through the installer really quick. Obviously, I'm not going to just go and do everything, but yeah, if you like what you see, links are in the description. Sorry about that. Let's just jump into things. First off, let's just get the easy stuff out of the way. So stat priority for Havoc. So for Fel-Scarred builds, we're going to want crit and mastery, then haste, then verse. Now crit and mastery are almost even when it comes to Prio for Fel-Scarred, and that's because we're converting so much damage with any means necessary that the value of mastery is crazy high. We're converting stuff like Burning Blades and Demon Surge from fire to chaos, and obviously, those abilities are just doing a lot of damage right now. And for Aldrachi Reaver, your Prio is going to look like crit, haste, mastery, and then verse. Now for Aldrachi Reaver, crit is just the best stat. You want to aim for crit on almost all your gear. And then haste and mastery are pretty close. But moving on, next we'll cover embellishments. Now it does kind of suck because we're in a spot again where two different setups are best for different content. So for raid, Darkmoon Sigil Ascension with Writhing Armor Banding is best. And then for Mythic Plus, 2 Dawn Thread Linings are best. Now, if you're not, a hardcore raider or whatever, and you just want something for both, I suggest going with 2 Dawn Thread Linings. It's not a terrible option for raid, and it is best for Mythic Plus, so it's not really that big of a deal. But if you really want to min-max raid, I suggest going with Ascension on a weapon, especially early, because going Ascension is nice because you can put it on a weapon, and crafting a weapon early on is just a really easy way to gain some good damage. And obviously, if you in your guild, you're pushing for, a decent rank, that crafting a weapon early is definitely nice. Now in my document, I cover the gear, but I'm not going to talk about every piece of gear, obviously. So we'll just look at the trinkets. Currently, our best performing trinkets are Scarden's Grace, which comes from Grim Batol, and then Arakara Sack Brood from, could you guess, the Arakara City of Echoes dungeon. I do have a sim linked in the Google Doc and in the description of this video showing the value of all the trinkets, so if you're unlucky with these and come up on something else, it might be also a pretty good option. And then we can look at our best weapon enchant, which is really the only variety when it comes to damage from enchants. Like ring enchants, it's basically, sim your character, see where your stats are at, and that's as much as I can offer there. But yeah, for weapon enchants, we'll be wanting to use Authority of Radiant Power on both of our weapons. It's the best in AOE by a pretty good margin, and then in single target, it's just barely ahead of everything else. But it is nice because it's best in both forms of content. So now we'll get into the good stuff and take a look at talents. But before we do, I just want to talk about where Havoc is right now in playing either Fel-Scarred or Aldrachi Reaver. So currently, they sim basically the same. Aldrachi Reaver is a bit of bait just because of current bugs, the amount of RNG with the tree, and it being insanely uptime dependent. Because the way the tree does damage is keeping up 2 buffs from an RNG resource. So if you're not generating soul fragments, which is the RNG resource, and you can't keep up Reaver's Mark and Thrill of the Fight, you're losing out on 34% damage. And obviously that's just really, really bad. And compared to Fel-Scarred, it's not about uptime, it's just about those short burst windows, which are really easy to do. But anyways, let's just look at the builds now. So for Fel-Scarred, the best build for raid is Inertia, no AFI with Essence Break. This build is really simple, but the opener for it and the meta setups are a bit weird compared to what we're used to in Dragonflight. Now because Burning Blades is such a strong dot, we are trying to get it to pump as much as possible. So the opener currently looks something like this with the build. So we went to Immolation Aura, Sigil of Flame, The Hunt, Fellblade, I-Beam, Fel Rush, Annihilation, Death Sweep, Vengeful Retreat in meta, Death Sweep, Annihilation, Immolation Aura, Sigil of Flame, I-Beam, Fel Rush, Essence Break, Death Sweep, and then 2 Annihilations. Now for the smaller burst windows, your Demonic and Essence Break windows, you're going to want to Immolation Aura, Sigil of Flame, Vengeful Retreat, Eye Beam, Fel Rush, Essence Break, Death Sweep, and then 2 Annihilations. So we just want to follow these setups, just making sure we Sigil of Flame before every burst window we do because of the Mastery buff Student of Suffering from Fel-Scarred, and also saving Immolation Aura for Inertia during those windows as well. Now we'll look at Aldrachi Reaver. So the build for Raid is a Shattered Destiny low mover build. This build is really simple. You don't have any burst windows. You kind of just throw your Reaver's Glaives whenever you have one up. Sigil of Spite and Sigil of Flame on cooldown to generate soul fragments. Cast the Hunt when you do not have an active Reaver's Glaive ready, so you don't overlap them, and then you're just eye beaming on cooldown. This build is just a face roll, send everything on cooldown type beat. But the opener would look something like this: Immolation Aura, Sigil of Flame, Fellblade, Eye Beam, the Hunt, Reaver's Glaive, Death Sweep, Annihilation, Sigil of Spite, Vengeful Retreat and Meta, Death Sweep, Annihilation, and then Eye Beam. And Annihilation again. Alright, so now we'll look at the Fel-Scarred AOE and Mythic Plus build. So we're taking a Fire inside to give us 2 charges of Immolation Aura for Rage Fire. Basically, if you're playing Rage Fire, you always want a Fire inside, just because it basically makes it twice as strong. We're also taking Essence Break and Glaive Tempest. So this build is pretty busy, you're pressing a lot of different buttons. You can take Fel Barrage instead of Glaive Tempest for a bit more burst damage, but myself, I tend to stay away from it, just because it costs so much fury to use and it's basically a dead talent and single target. Since we're taking a Fire inside, we have 2 Immolation Aura charges. We want to spend these before we meta, because your charges will reset when you meta from a talent in the Fel-Scarred hero tree. So with that in mind, in the rotation, we're going to be stacking our Inertia, so something like Immo Aura, Fel Rush, Immo Aura, Fel Rush, and just stacking that Inertia. It's not exactly like that in the rotation, but you know, I'll show it to you now. You want to Immolation Aura, the Hunt, Sigil of Flame, Fel Rush, Immolation Aura, Fel Rush, Eye Beam, Annihilation, Essence Break, Death Sweep, Vengeful and Meta, Death Sweep, Annihilation, Sigil of Flame, Immolation Aura, Fel Rush, Eye Beam, and then Glaive Tempest. I don't have Glaive Tempest bound. But yeah, after that Abyssal Gaze or Eye Beam, you would want to send your Glaive Tempest. Now we'll take a look at the Aldrachi Reaver AOE and Mythic Plus build. So with Aldrachi Reaver, we take the Throwglaive talents, so you are going to want to weave in some Throwglaives in downtime whenever you don't have any Fury or you're out of range or something. But mainly we're just taking Soul-Scarred because Reaver's Glaive procs it, and it does a lot of damage. It basically doubles the damage of our Reaver's Glaive, just duplicates it, and it's scaled with Mastery because it does chaos damage, and it just does a lot of damage. But with Aldrachi Reaver, it's basically just face roll, send everything on cooldown. It sounds simple, but Aldrachi Reaver is probably the most complicated hero tree or just spec overall in the game to play when it comes down to it. Just, you know, dealing with multiple resources and one of them being RNG. It's easy if you just face roll it and don't really think about it, but it's it's pretty complicated. But the only time you're really trying to set something up is when you have meta. So you always want to get a Reaver's Glaive before you meta, just so you have the Thrill the Fight buffs, Reaver's Mark, and you're buffing your Death Sweeps and stuff. Alright, so now we'll look at the Aldrachi Reaver AOE rotation for the opener. And I do have Glaive Tempest bound this time, so that is a plus. What you want to do is Immolation Aura, Sigil of Flame, the Hunt, Reaver's Glaive, Fellblade, Fel Rush, Eye Beam, Annihilation, Death Sweep, Meta and Vengeful, Death Sweep, Glaive Tempest, Sigil of Spite, and then Eye Beam. Now in AoE with Reaver's Glaive, it is a pretty big gain to Chaos Strike first after your Reaver's Glaive, and then Death Sweep or Blade Dance second, because you're almost doubling the damage of it and the AoE portion. Just pretty easy to do. It's a lot easier to do to make sure Blade Dance is up and single target. It's like the reverse. So because obviously Chaos Strike doesn't have a cooldown. So in that case, it is a bit easier in AoE. And then you just want to be Sigil of Flaming and Sigil of Spiting on cooldown to generate soul fragments. And then you, again, using the Hunt when you don't have a Reaver's Glaive active, so you don't overlap them, and then you're basically just casting Eye Beam on cooldown. I think I did cover everything that you'll need to know about Havoc in Season 1 in this video. If I missed anything, or if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. And again, all this info is in the Google Doc I made, linked in the description. If you want some more info or want to actually talk about anything DH, make sure to join my Discord. And if you're looking for the best UI in the game, I got you covered. Join the Discord. But I think that's it. Hope everyone has a great Season 1. This X-Pack launch, honestly, it's been, you know, pretty slow. It's like 3 weeks in and we have no content yet. But we got Heroic Raid coming out really soon, so big hype. And even though it's been pretty slow, I've honestly enjoyed it more than Dragonflight. I don't know why, but yeah. Until next time, guys. Peace.